Hey guys, a few days ago I started on my new sci-fi game for VR. I'm going to make this game and release it on AppLab and SideQuest for the Oculus Quest 2. Let's jump right in. What's up guys, today I'm going to be talking about the creation of my new sci-fi game for the Oculus Quest 2. In this first video, I'm mainly just going to be modeling. I'm trying to figure out exactly what I want from the level design, because I haven't written the whole story yet. I've got an idea in my mind, but I really want to see what I can produce for a level before I really dive into the story, because it's really going to set the mood. So a few things that I had in mind. First of all, it has to be modular. It has to be able to be reproducible. So I'm going to make it in sections, and each of these sections takes up a 4x4 meter grid, and I'll set the center to the center of the universe. That way, all the geometry is able to be snapped. So when I port it into Unity, I will be able to drag and drop, and I will be able to create this modular, repeating, never-ending world. So I can make levels as large or as small as I want. So as I bring them in here, I had some issues at first because some of my models were not formatted correctly with the walls and stuff. The walls ended up being invisible. So I had to go back into Blender and fix that. But mainly I'm using snapping here, so everything is being snapped to a grid. What that means is basically when I hold down Control and move the items, I can make sure that they line up perfectly, so that way I don't have to spend tons of time lining up all these elements, and everything's completely modular. So what I'm going for here is like a space station. So in the story, there's going to be this space station that's moving towards Earth, and it's run by androids that human beings had created a few hundred years before, and basically the goal is you're playing as an agent that has to go infiltrate the space station. It needs to feel really dark, really dramatic, really intense. Not horror thriller style, but just to really capture the mood. So I'm trying to set that tone, set that mood in the environment. So it's going to be obviously set in space, on a space station. All of my materials and everything, I want it to have a nice classic sci-fi, three-dimensional look, futuristic, but also realistic. It's really easy with sci-fi to go too far, to where it no longer looks even remotely possible. And to me, science fiction is all about being speculative fiction. Like, okay, could this be this way in the future? 300 years from now, 400 years from now, could we have stuff like this? That's what it's all about to me. As you can see, everything is modular. I'm just messing around with it at this point, just making sure before I really dive into texturing and materials, I just wanted to make sure that it was modular in the way that it was supposed to be, and just kind of see, picture in my head what this could look like, because I'm going to develop some larger portions later, and we're going to be adding details in the next video after we add a character controller. That way we can walk around. The first thing we'll do in the next video is walk around and stuff. So here I'm adding a package that allows me to have space in the background. It's the actual Milky Way galaxy. These are real stars, and you can actually have the option to label stars. I don't want that though, because I want a more immersive feel. But I'll have a link to this package down below. It's absolutely amazing. So that right there already looks pretty spectacular. I mean, even if I just left it gray and black, like the ability to have the stars in the background, it's all parallax, it moves and everything. It's pretty beautiful. But I decided that I wanted to go a little more in depth. So I had this material that I downloaded, and I wasn't really impressed with it. So all you're going to see here is me trying to make this material work, because I thought it could be cool. And I spent a lot of time on that because I really want something that captures this feeling of being trapped on an Android space station, right? That's what I'm going for. But it just wasn't doing it for me. It didn't look right. No matter what I did, I couldn't quite get the materials to line up. This octagon shape was horrendous for trying to get materials to work. So that wasn't really the best. So what I ended up doing is, after playing with it, I downloaded a texture pack. It's a Sci-Fi Materials texture pack. I'll have a link to that in the description as well. And I started playing around with these. Now, what you're going to see is I find one that I absolutely love, and then I just stop. I'm like, okay, that's the one. So I play around with it. I had some issues with the faces on these corner pieces and the ceilings. It was not wanting to register textures. So after playing around with it and not actually getting anything to work, I had to go back into Blender and remap that. I had to UV map those weird shapes. I've messed around with this texture. I'm actually going to use that later. But once I found this blue here, I was like, oh yes, that's the color. That's exactly what I had in mind. And then I found that floor paneling as well. and I had my mind made up. I didn't have to go back and mess around with it much more. So this is the space station with those new textures applied. I added a little bit of lighting. I'm going to add a directional light on the outside so that you can see, to kind of give that effect that there's light coming in from the stars, which I feel like is, you know, pretty realistic. There's going to be light out there. It's going to be pretty bright. And also the windows, the floors and the ceilings, and even the edge pieces on these corners are windows. They're transparent, so you can see the starlight coming through. And I really wanted to do that, and this is going to be really cool later, as I already experimented a little bit with the textures I'm going to use on the enemies. And I want to be able to see the reflections of the walls and the stars through the windows. I want to be able to see those reflections on my robots, the androids I'm making. So that's something I had in mind here, and I was pretty happy with how this turned out. I'm just going through here, and I'm adding all of these platforms in here, the walkways. I saved all these as prefab, so all I have to do is drag and drop them in there. So what we have now is a modular, infinite level design, so I can get as complex or stay as simple as I want with these. And that is pretty stinking cool. I'm going to design some larger pieces, like I said in the next video, where we're going to be able to have centralized rooms where these tubes, these tunnels, are going to connect. So the tunnels will act as the maze portion of the map, and the centerpiece rooms, the big rooms, will have more of the interaction. And I'm going to put little details in these tunnels to kind of let the player know what's going on, little pieces of the story, little elements to interact with. But mostly it's going to be a maze puzzle style. Then when we get into the bigger rooms, the other parts of the space station, there will be more interacting, eventually fighting. So early on in the game, these tubes are going to be the primary places that we're interacting with. It's going to be more maze style, a little bit more passive play, don't get caught kind of thing. Later on, I'll introduce a little bit more fighting, maybe some combat. So this is the final stage of my first round, my first test, and I was pretty happy with it. It looks beautiful from the outside. Once it's big and complex, it's going to be a beautiful space station. On the inside, you see it's interesting, enough light to see what's going on, but not too bright. Lacking details, but that's okay. We're going to make sure that we can walk around and enjoy it in the next video, and then we're going to go from there to adding details to the inside. I hope you enjoyed this first episode. In the next episode, we'll work on player movement with our level in VR, and then we'll start adding more details to the tunnel sections of our space station. Future episodes will include more level design, modeling, scripting, and storytelling, and finally, uploading the game for people to play. I'll be recording the entire process. These episodes are not necessarily meant to be tutorials. If you'd like for me to make tutorials on VR development, then please let me know in the comments. Be sure to follow me on Twitter for updates on the game, and check out my Patreon page. All of my patrons will be able to beta test my game when I'm ready to start testing, and certain tiers will get early access to the game when it is finished. Thanks for watching.